So what do leaders need to know about machine learning and AI? I'll start off by asking you a very simple question. Do you think it is difficult or easy to apply machine learning and AI in solving problems? If you think it's easy, you can type E in the chat, or you can type D if you think it's difficult, or you can just answer it to yourself. And we're all going to answer it together. We'll begin by doing this simple thought experiment. I'm going to offer you two options, and you might have seen this before. The first option is that I'm going to give you $10,000 a day for 30 days, which means that today you get 10,000, tomorrow you get 10,000, and that becomes 20, and then 30,000, and so on. The second option is that I'm going to give you 2 pennies that double in value, also each day for 30 days. And so today is 2 pennies, tomorrow it becomes 4, then it becomes 8, and then so on. Which one will you choose? Again, if you're okay with it, type in the chat 10K if you will select 10K, or just type 2P if you will choose 2P. But what did you choose? If you chose $10,000, by the end of 30 days, you end up with $310,000. This is a great, tidy sum of money. But if you chose the 2 pennies, you end up with $10.7 million by the end of 30 days. This is great, tidy sum of money. Which one did you choose? Did you miss out? Now, what influenced your decision? Is it because you've had the experiment before? Or is it just because of how you were able to think? Now, why do most of us choose $10,000? It's because we think incrementally. It's easy for us to see that $10,000 will become 20, it becomes 30, and then so on. And so for a long time, organizations have built strategies around this. When we say we want to increase growth, or we want to look for growth in our organization, we say we want to increase by 10x. But the problem is when we do that, we miss out on the effect of overtime by an order of magnitude, and that is called exponential change. You see, exponential change, which is 10 to the power x, is very, very appealing, because now you hear that, oh, you're going to get $10.7 million, right? But it's also very difficult to do. Imagine you working in an organization with somebody who thinks incrementally, and you think exponentially. You start off and you have 2 pennies. Now, at the end of maybe 15 days, the incremental thinker is around $150,000, and you are sitting at $164. Now, if you go to a meeting, you have to explain to your board or to your bosses why you are taking this particular route or why you are sticking to this strategy. It is difficult. However, if you stick to your guns, by day 27, you're around the block. Now you can hit about $1.3 million, and just 3 days after, you can hit $10.7 million. Now, why are we talking about this illustration? We're talking about it because of 2 reasons. The first one is that in order for us to embrace emerging technologies, we have to switch our mindset from being incremental thinkers to being exponential thinkers. We have to embrace exponential change. But the second reason why this is important is because this illustration, in my opinion, applies to technologies that are developing exponentially. You see, like the 2 pennies, these technologies initially look deceptively disappointing. They look very clunky. Only a few people can do it. They're so expensive. You need specialized skills and specialized type of educations to be able to apply them. But over time, they appear to explode in price, in performance, in accessibility, in usefulness. And one of those technologies is artificial intelligence. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So what is artificial intelligence? You might have heard it. We can define artificial intelligence by using one of the technologies utilized in building artificial intelligence solutions called machine learning. And in a very simple term, it is the application of techniques to historical data so that you can predict the future. So basically, when you try to teach a computer to learn from historical data so that it can proactively predict what could happen in future, we can say that you are doing machine learning or you are doing artificial intelligence. Now, there's a difference between AI and data analysis or the BI processes that we have. Now, BI is good, business intelligence is great, but the problem is that even though they are really good, they tell us what has happened. That is why we always have BI reports that says, how many records did we sold? How many customers did we lose? How many this, how many that? It's always after the fact. So we get the information and it's already happened, and so we are reactive. Now imagine if you could combine being reactive with being proactive, and that's where machine learning and artificial intelligence come in. This is where it can proactively tell you what could happen based on historical data and why. And when I say data, I am not only talking about data sitting in data warehouses and Excel sheets or the structured documents that we have, the structured data that we have. I'm also talking about audio recordings, images, video recordings, data that are coming from devices and appliances and equipments, sequencing data, multivariate and univariate time series data, text data that you have. There could be emails, there could be documents. These could all be used in building useful machine learning solutions. Now, AI has exploded, like we said, in usefulness. We all know it. We see AI, we see it around us every day. In fact, it's become a general purpose technology that is disrupting every organization. It's very difficult to really think of industries where AI will not disrupt in the near future. And every day, as you watch YouTube videos, AI is at work. How many of us have gone to Google maybe to search about rings, and then you go to watch YouTube videos and then you see that, oh, you're looking at adverts about rings. It's AI in the background. Or you watch a particular hip life music, and then the next time there is a recommendation of another one. Just because people like you also watched it, it's a recommendation. It's AI at work. When you watch Netflix and you watch one movie and then there are recommendations, this is AI at work. When you use Google Maps to move from one location to another, AI at work. In fact, one of the very simple use of it that we take for granted is when we type on our phones. Your QWERTY keyboard. You type on it and then it starts to learn, and then it begins to make recommendations of words to you. It's learned from history, and then now it's making recommendations to you. It's proactively giving you a peek into what could happen in future. And so the usefulness is soaring to the roof. However, for a long time, the complexities in the technologies that are used in building AI is also something that all of us couldn't even fathom. It was so difficult. Or let me say, for some of us, we still think it's still very difficult. But that's a myth. That used to be the case maybe about 20 years ago. AI was so complex that only a few people with master's degree and PhDs, and in fact, they had to be computer scientists to do this. And they have to be proficient in programming different programming languages. But now, AI has been truly democratized in that different people are using them to solve different problems. In fact, there are people who have never written code in their life, and they are able to use it in solving problems. Why? Because they understand the principles of AI and they know how to use a mouse. And there are a lot of leaders who have embraced this technology, and they've been able to increase efficiencies and profitability in the organization. Why? Because they understand and can see opportunities for AI, and they've been able to apply. So just like the 2 pennies, now AI is around the $1.3 million range. Day 27. It's very easy for us to use. So when I say easy, what are some of the real use cases out there that people are applying AI to? And this is not exhaustive. I chose about 6 different industries and then decided to share some of the use cases that we in Braintoy have personally worked on with organizations here in Canada, and are even also beginning to talk to companies in Ghana with some of our partners to talk to companies in Ghana so we can help them apply and adopt AI. Our first use case is in the accounting sector. AI and accounting, how AI is supporting the audit function. And so we call it audit augmentation. You see, currently, auditors only study a selected sample of transactions. And it makes sense because there are a whole lot of transactions that flow through a company, through companies. And that limits the number of transactions that an auditor can inspect manually. But proactive auditors who are embracing emerging technologies are actually partnering with AI organizations. And what we are doing is that we are using AI to enable audit 100% of companies' financial transactions. Machine learning algorithms are being utilized to process, to review data, and what they do is they recognize anomalies, and then it will compile a list of outliers for auditors to check. And so instead of auditors spending most of their time checking data, now the auditors can apply their skills to investigate and deduce the reason behind the pattern and the anomaly. Now, the companies that are doing this have a huge advantage or competitive edge over companies that are not doing it because they have a value add. They can say that when we audit your account or we audit your transactions, we audit 100% of the transactions. It is efficient, it is faster, and it is cost effective. The next use case is in the health sector. Now, there are a lot of digital information today. And in fact, we are talking to a partner, Frank Parker, in Ghana, and we are thinking of doing this. Hopefully it goes through. And what we are thinking of doing, or what has been done actually, is that with these X-ray images, which is just one of the examples of the data from the health sector, we are able to detect diseases. So imagine you taking an X-ray and you have tuberculosis. Now today there are methods in which this is done. The methods are that somebody manually take a look at this, and based on their experience, they will read to you and say that, hey, maybe you have tuberculosis. But imagine a world where we can just upload this X-ray image, and then a machine learning algorithm will learn from it, and it will tell you, because we have history of people of chest X-rays, of X-ray images of people with tuberculosis and also with people without. And so it's easy for an algorithm to learn from this, and then when it sees a new X-ray image, it will be able to tell you this is an image of someone with tuberculosis or not. In fact, here we have used it, we have worked with hospitals and have used it on COVID and also in detecting brain tumors. Now, this could even be applied in helping people with HIV in so many different ways. And these are some of the possibilities that we might be working on with a partner that we're talking to, Frank Parker from Landmarks. Now, the next use case is in the energy sector. I do not know if you have heard of energy disaggregation, but these days, utility companies have advanced metering systems, or what we call smart meters. If they have not yet been deployed in Ghana, they might be coming very soon. And basically what energy disaggregation allows us to do is that with these smart meters, you stream data, and you can stream them in seconds, or you can even stream them in minutes or hours. It all depends on how you want to configure them. And so when it is configured, then it allows us to measure how much energy goes into each major appliance in a household. And especially for bigger industries that consume a lot of energy, it is very useful because you know which devices or which appliances are consuming most of your energies. And so what you do is that you analyze them, you identify patterns, and then you eliminate inefficiencies. Now, this disaggregated information has two major impacts. It helps increase utility customer engagement, and it also reduces energy usage. Why? Because you can proactively make recommendations to modify the behavior of the consumers. You can inform them the best time to use certain devices or certain appliances. Maybe there are peak times, and so certain things could be turned off, as an example. Now, another thing is you can also combine this, even if you don't have smart meters or advanced metering systems, you do have data about your consumption patterns. And so one of the things that utility companies are doing is that they're able to predict energy consumption. And imagine what that does for them. If you can predict energy consumption, you know how much energy is going to be consumed in a particular area or locality. So that informs how much energy you have to generate, because it's difficult to even store energy with current technology. And so if you know how much to generate, then you can really provide reliable energy to people. Even if you have to load shed, you are able to do that faster, you're able to do that efficiently. The other use case that we want to talk about is in the telecommunication field. And maybe some of you are already familiar with some of these use cases. The first one I want to talk about is customer churn. This is basically learning from behaviors of customers or from historical data and predicting which customers are potential flight risk. Take, for example, a telecommunication that has maybe about 4 million customers. Every month, they lose about 60,000 of those customers. But they also gain, maybe they also gain about 30,000 customers. The problem is that they will usually offset how many customers they gain with how many customers they lose. But that's a mistake, because they spend about 5 to 10 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain existing ones. Why? Because they offer promotion, they reduce the prices, and so on and so forth. And some customers might also be enticed by other competitors out there, or maybe they have service issues. And so they will try to fix them by calling the call center. But when they call in, they will end up being on the line for at least 30 minutes, which further reinforces their desire to cut the cord, so to speak, or to stop buying your services. But with machine learning, you are able to predict which customers are potential flight risk. You know this beforehand, and then you can put in place some interventions so that you can mitigate the risk of these customers leaving, because you're better off retaining existing customers than trying to spend more money in acquiring new ones. Now, another thing is product churn. And there's a huge problem in telecom called product cannibalization. Basically, telecommunications have clients who have different buying powers, so to speak. And so let's say you have a product that costs 5 cedis, and there are people that can afford 5 cedis. But then there's a certain segment of the market that cannot afford 5 cedis. They can only pay 2 cedis. And so what you do is that you release a new product. And your goal is you are targeting the people that can pay 2 cedis. But what happens is that all of a sudden, the 5 cedi client sees this 2 cedi product, and then they downgrade. And so instead of you increasing revenue, now you've cannibalized yourself. And so what AI could do, or machine learning could do, is it could help you predict users who may downgrade. It could also help you predict users who may upgrade, so that you will be able to put in place some type of strategy and you can avoid product cannibalization. Now, there are a whole lot of use cases in the telecom industry, network optimization, and a host of them. The next use case I want to talk about is in the financial industry. So banks, insurance, finance. In fact, most of the use cases we've discussed above applies to the banks, and this product recommendation also applies to other organizations or verticals we've spoken about today. Now, the banks are looking at product recommendations. They have so many products that sometimes customers do not even know which ones are released by the bank. And so what we can do is that with machine learning, you can learn from patterns and historical data of customers. And so when they walk into the bank and they're interacting with a teller, you could have personalized recommendations purely based on that particular individual's characteristics. And so the teller could make that recommendation. Or maybe it's online banking. So as people interact with the bank through online banking, they are able to get some of these recommendations. And the probability of uptake is very high. And once these are built, in fact, you don't even need to spend more money in marketing. Now, again, we are talking to one of our partners, Audit Global, about working together and also supporting the financial industry in Ghana. And one of the products we're talking about is conversational AI. And I'm not talking about a lot of FAQs or some type of rules. We're talking about a real interactive conversational AI backed by machine learning algorithms. And so they are intelligent. Now, basically what some of these things do is, in addition to helping you interact with your customers, it also makes proactive recommendations, which increases the lifetime value of your customers. But there are a whole lot of other things that could also be done. Fraud detection in the financial sector, as an example. All of these will help the financial sector to be proactive. And in this way, they get to enjoy the benefits of adopting AI. Now, the next one is in the education sector. In the Western world, they call AI, or they've compared AI to being the next electricity. I don't know if you've heard it. Andrew Ng of Stanford, one of the pioneers in deep learning and artificial intelligence, they liken AI to the next electricity. Imagine today, which company can be run without electricity? No one. This webinar is not possible without electricity. Now, we all don't have to be electricians, but we all understand what electricity is and what it could be used for. And so when we purchase an appliance, irrespective of what appliance it is, we know that when we take it home, we can check the voltage and we know what to use it for and how to power that device. And so because of that, it is currently, in fact, Google CEO, I think about 2 weeks ago, also likened AI to the discovery of fire. So this is where AI is going. It's very difficult to see which organization or which industry will not be disrupted by this 21st century emerging technology called AI. So it's a general purpose technology that is going to disrupt everywhere. And because of this, in Canada and other parts of the world, they are trying to empower everybody, from accountants to supply chain professionals to everyone, biological scientists, because if you generate data, you can leverage AI. And so we have training programs such as AI for Leadership training programs, which is targeted at helping leaders understand the implications of AI on culture, how they can build their AI strategy, how they can spot opportunities of AI in the organizations, and so on and so forth. There are AI programs for mid-career professionals. We partner with universities and we offer applied AI training, not only to computer scientists. In fact, the computer scientists are already studying this, but there are a host of other departments or other schools with different domain knowledge who can also benefit from learning from AI. And like I said, because AI has been democratized, they do not even need to learn how to code. And in fact, we also started teaching AI to youth, high school students. By end of August, we would have trained at least 900 students, high school students. So everyone is raising to empower their future or to empower people with this emerging technology. And so in the education sector, it is also very good for us to think of how we can empower people with this technology so they can use it to solve meaningful problems. The last use case I want to talk about today is in the oil and gas industry. Now, oil and gas companies have plants, and in these plants, there are always gas emissions. But you all know that it's also difficult to detect leaks. And some of these gases are also very poisonous. And so one of the things we have done is that we are able to get information from camera feed and infrared images captured by drones. And these have become preventative measures because they're saving lives, they're enabling organizations to meet their safety standards. The health of employees are also taken into account, and it has a huge economic and environmental impact. In the oil and gas industry, also much like the mining industry, you can predict and optimize production. In fact, we are using this same approach also in detecting defective cells in a solar farm. You can even predict oil prices. So the possibilities are endless. And there are a whole lot of use cases, but we just took a few to talk about. Now, what do all these companies embracing AI and solving these use cases have in common? They have what I call the triple benefits of AI, which is they are all reducing some type of cost. They are increasing some type of efficiency, and the result is that they are increasing profitability. In fact, in other cases, there are some things that are increased that are sometimes subjective because they are qualitative measures and companies don't even measure it. Things like customer satisfaction and customer engagement. They're able to enrich the customers engagement such that the results could now be translated into increase in profitability. So, does this look enticing to you? How do you start? I'd like to give you just a very simple framework that you can start. So as a leader and as a professional, if you want to embrace AI, you can follow these 4 steps. Now, the first one is that try and identify potential opportunities of AI in your organization. Now, how would you spot opportunities? One of the ways is that first you will try and get some knowledge about AI at a super high level. And by joining this webinar, this is one of the ways. Now you've seen some use cases and the possibilities out there. You've also seen some of the data that are being used in different sectors. And so when you spot any opportunity, when you discuss problems in your organization and you tie them to the data available in your organization, you are able to see where AI could be useful. So look at your current process and set products and services and brainstorm with your team and look for business problems. Now, as you do this, make sure you tie it to data that you have. And when I say data, I am not talking of, usually we want to talk about the big data that we have in our warehouses. No, look at the small chunks of data, the Excel documents that you might even have, the data, the time series data that are coming from appliances that sit in your SQL databases, or maybe the CSV document that is sitting on your computer, or some type of test document that you have, or some emails that you have, and see how you can connect them. And by the time you finish this brainstorming session, you would have ended up with maybe 5 or 10 different use cases. And that moves us to our second point. When you have about 5 or 10, and you've brainstormed with your team, and let me just add that when you're brainstorming these ideas, make sure that the ideas win. It's not about hierarchy. So it's not because this idea came from the boss, and so, or because he's the boss, we're going to work with it. No. The best idea wins. So it calls for a bit of humility there because you want to use your resources wisely. Now, after you've done that, now you have to prioritize the use cases. You need to assess the potential business and financial value of these various possible AI implementations that you've identified. And as you brainstorm, you realize that it is very easy to get lost in the pie in the sky idea, right? But be careful. Try and tie your initiatives directly to business value, because then you'll be able to plan your budget, and then you'll also be able to define a scope, and you know that whatever you deliver in the end will be tangible and will provide value to the organization. The third step is that you have to look at internal capability gaps. What kind of skills do you have? What kind of skills do you lack? Who do you have to bring in? Now, what do you want to accomplish? What is your organization's ability to actually achieve this particular goal that you've set within the given time frame? So if you have some BI teams that are great, that have knowledge in data science, maybe you can start data science, you can start with them. If you don't, maybe you can consult and work with partners. And that's our fourth step. Bring in experts and set up a pilot project. And this is a very key point, is that start small and have a goal in mind. Make sure that whatever you do is also practical. Don't end up with very huge reports or fancy PowerPoint presentations. Look for something that is practical, that could be integrated into business, maybe whether new or legacy applications, so that you can put AI to work and you can realize the value. Then you can begin to get more budget and then apply AI in different aspects of your business. So now that we have a framework for understanding or for leveraging AI, I would like to actually end on this note by talking about this mindset and becoming. Mindset and becoming is actually something I got from a book that was written by a cognitive psychologist from Stanford, and her name is Carol Dweck. Now, she wrote this book, and in this book, she speaks of mindset, and she differentiates between 2 kinds of people. She speaks of the people with a fixed mindset. Now, the fixed mindset are people who believe that we are who we are, we cannot change. And so they will say, I can't do math, I don't know how to dance, I can't learn how to code, I can't do this, I can't do that. On the other hand, there's a second group of people with a growth mindset. The growth mindset are people who believe that abilities and innate it's something that we can improve. Abilities and capabilities are things that we can improve. And they always strive to improve by learning new things. Now, in her research, what she came out or what she found was that there is a high correlation between success when it comes to problem solving, or even successful people, success during the course of life. There's a high correlation between success and people with a growth mindset. And that is way higher than people with a fixed mindset. So my question to you is twofold. One, what is your mindset? Now, the fact that you are here means you want to embrace emerging technology. So you probably have a growth mindset. But my other question is, what is the mindset of your organization? Because people make up the organization. So in your team, what is the mindset? Does your organization have this attitude that this is how things have always been? We don't need to change. It's been 20 years, it's been 50 years, and this is how we do things. If we do that, then we are creating a fixed mindset for our companies or for organizations, and we could be in trouble. But if we have a growth mindset, then we will be open to embracing emerging technologies, and we'll be able to enjoy the benefits that come with it. Because whether we like it or not, the fact is that AI is here and it works. Now, the best time to embrace AI was about 10 years ago. The second best time is now. Most companies are racing to adopt these emerging technologies. And they don't even have to be in Ghana or in our country to disrupt our business. They are able to do this online. If anything at all, COVID has taught us a lesson. And so we know that the jobs of tomorrow belongs to people who can solve problems creatively. And one of the ways in which we can solve problems creatively is by using artificial intelligence. The companies of tomorrow are those that can embrace emerging technologies and can solve problems creatively so that they can have a competitive advantage. And so if you don't start now, you'll be playing catch up. And if you play catch up, you will miss out on the first mover advantage. And what might happen is that you might even be desperate and have a fear of missing out, or FOMO, as people put it. So the point I'm trying to make is that we live in a world of acceleration change, a world that is always in the process of becoming something new. And like I said, we've all learned from what happened with COVID, how things can drastically change. And so that means that we also have to change. We have to become exponential thinkers and creative problem solvers. And I, for one, I am thrilled that working together, we will all be exploring the possible futures together. So thank you, and we will be happy to take some questions from you.
Thank you so much, Kwame. It's been an exciting presentation. I don't know about you, but it's been really exciting having gone through all the various industries that we think we have participation from: auditing, health, energy, telecom, education, and the oil and gas industry. And I'm really excited about the end. And I would want to entreat everyone to have a growth mindset, change the status quo, don't get too excited doing mundane tasks, and bring success to yourself and your organization. AI is accessible, and indeed, AI is here and it works.